Welcome to Focus with Tim Thomas. We're glad you've joined us for another edition of our program. We have with us here in the beautiful far side room of the First United Methodist Church here in the city of Madisonville, none other than my good friend, Senator Reggie Thomas, who represents the 13th City District of Lexington. Welcome, Senator.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Good to have you with us, and glad that you were in this area where you can sit down and talk with us.
Well, I'm glad to be back in Madisonville.
Glad to have you. Our listening audience, this may be the first time they have seen you. Tell us how long you've been in office now.
I've been in office, I got elected December 10th, 2013. That was during a special election. The previous senator had resigned to become a judge there in Fayette County. So the seat was open. I ran and won my election and got sworn in January 2nd, 2014. So I've served now almost 3 years. Fortunately for me, when I filed for re-election at the beginning of this year, I became unopposed. So I'm on the ballot unopposed, so I will be back serving the people for another 4 years there in Lexington, beginning 2017. I'm very honored and humbled that they've appreciated my service. I'm honored to represent them, and so I will start my second term in January.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And by all aspects, you are doing a fantastic job for the citizens of the Commonwealth.
Well, I try. I try. I'm most proud of the fact, Tim, that I've never missed a session, and that got tested this year because in March I had my first ever kidney stone, and that was extremely painful. But I fought my way to the Senate. I met roll call and actually voted. And after the last vote, they escorted me out to the hospital. but
that's real dedication.
But I've never missed a session, and really have tried again to serve the people of Lexington, to meet all their needs, and I'm proud of my record. I must say I'm proud of my record in terms of what I've done for my constituents and my community and for the state.
Yes. A lot of issues taking place in our Commonwealth.
Lot of issues.
A lot of things going on. Let's talk about KNEC.
Okay.
Tell us where we are with that right now.
Well, Governor Bevin campaigned on the fact that he was going to dismantle Connect, and he has kept his word. That's what he intends to do. He has applied for a waiver to substantially modify Connect, and there are some very controversial parts of his new plan. One has a pay requirement. We're talking about people who are in poverty, but he wants them to pay a portion for their health care. Another controversial aspect is there's a work requirement. You have to do a certain amount of community service. And again, we're talking about people who are struggling. I mean, people who are below the poverty line or at the poverty line who struggle to find work, but he wants to add a work component to that. And probably the most controversial aspect of his plan is that if you miss a payment or you don't do your work requirement, then you can be kicked off for 6 months and can't get back on until you pay all your delinquencies. And again, you're talking about people who don't have enough money to begin with, people who, many of whom are homeless, have problems, just sustaining themselves in terms of feeding themselves, clothing themselves, and then to have these people go off the healthcare rolls just complicates things. So we'll see whether the federal government, the Department for, I think it's Health and Human Services, grants this request. If they don't, he initially said that he was going to still dismantle Connect, which would have the impact, and it's what your viewers need to know, which would have the impact of kicking 440,000 people off the health care rolls. I mean, that would be devastating for this state. He's kind of backed off of that some. Governor Bevin says that he didn't know what he would do. But again, he has been a strong opponent of Connect, and we'll see what happens.
So as you said, that will have a very, very devastating effect if that is to come into fruition.
Well, Tim, I think it is fair to make this point. When Governor Beshear implemented Connect, we had over 20% uninsured in the state. We were among the highest in the nation. In the 3 years since Connect's been in existence, Tim, we have gone from 20.2% uninsured to 7.5% uninsured. We had the highest improvement of uninsured to insured of any state in the country. We have been the model, and that's no exaggeration. We've been the model in terms of the Affordable Care Act and what it can do to bring people into the insured roles and provide them with better health care, routine health care, an opportunity for just routine screenings, cervical screenings, diabetes treatment, dental access, which is a big problem in this state. They are now insured and can get those kinds of treatments where they couldn't get them before. So to go backwards and have a high population again uninsured is just I can't see the sense of that. I guess that's what I'm trying to find the right word to say. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I understand exactly. Yeah. So it's a work in progress, and something will have to be done,
Right.
To make sure that these people,
Right.
are our people of the Commonwealth, are protected.
I would hope if the federal government denies our waivers, I would hope Governor Bevin would realize the benefit of keeping Connect in place. I would hope that he would do at least the Medicaid expansion portion. Well, I'd like to see the whole program be kept in place.
Sure.
But at a minimum, Tim, the Medicaid expansion, because we're talking about about 450,000 people who are in danger of losing health care.
Right. And Kentucky is one of the leaders in
We're the model.
healthcare.
We have been the model.
Yes.
We have been the model for a state-run healthcare exchange. We've been the model.
That says a lot. It really
There are
does.
50 states, and when people all over the country are lauding you for your healthcare operations, I mean that is a real compliment to our state.
Right, because I do know that Kentucky leads in various diseases and ailments that are taking place.
Well, Tim, we talk a lot about the Kentucky Uglies. The fact that we're last in the nation in lung cancer. We're 49th in cancer deaths. We're 48th in diabetes. We're in the bottom 20% in obesity. I mean, we have a huge number of healthcare issues, which we're near the bottom. And by having the Medicaid expansion and Connect in place, we have seen improvement in all of those areas. Now, it's going to take some time to get out of the bottom 20th percentile, but we're making progress. And I would just hate to see us as a state go backwards and again, stay at the bottom. That's not good for this. That's not good for any Kentuckian.
Right. Moving on, let's talk a little bit about Marcy's Law.
Okay.
And being the president of the Kentucky State Crime Stoppers Association, I know the importance of combating crime, fighting crime, this type of thing. This law, very important to our Commonwealth.
It is. Good.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, let me tell your viewers what Marcy's Law intends to do. The purpose of Marcy's Law is to provide a constitutional victims' bill of rights for victims who've been harmed, as part of our criminal justice process. People who are victims because they've lost people to murder, or they've been robbed or assaulted, burglarized. It would constitutionalize, place in our Constitution, a victims' bill of rights. Now, we already have in Kentucky a crime victims law. So we provide crime victims with certain rights already, notification rights regarding hearings or opportunities for community-based services, such as healthcare treatment or counseling or whatever. So we have a statute in place that provides help and assistance to victims, but Marcy's Law would put that in the Constitution. And there are some controversial aspects of that I want to share with your viewers, although I am a proponent of Marcy's Law. The way the statute is written, it mandates that the victim has a larger role in all hearings. You know, that would be the investigative process, that would be any pretrial hearings, the trial itself, sentencing. And there's been concern expressed that the victim may be entitled to an attorney or have a right to an attorney in all of these hearings, which would complicate things from a prosecutorial standpoint, and may suggest that the victim and the victim's attorney and prosecutor's attorney, may be at odds in some cases. And if the victim didn't like the overall outcome of a criminal justice proceeding, the victim could appeal that or seek to overturn that, even though the prosecutor would be satisfied with that. That's a concern of some.
Yes.
And so what happened this past legislative session, the Senate overwhelmingly voted for it. I supported Marcy's Law.
Yeah.
I voted it out. It got over to the House, and it got a committee hearing, went to the House floor, but stalled there, and didn't get voted on by the House. I suspect Marcy's Law will come back again, and I'm confident that it'll get out of the Senate. And this time I hope it does pass and becomes law, because I do believe that victims should be heard. I think victims should have their day in court too, because they're the one who's been harmed.
Yes.
They're the one who suffered the full force and brunt of the criminal attack. And they deserve to have, again, their voices part of the criminal justice system.
Yes. And this bill, I think, was Bill 175.
Right.
That, as you said, that was put up.
Right. So.
This law is really the voice of the victim.
Right. And briefly, by way of background, there was a gentleman who lost a daughter by the name of Marcy out of California, and he's been going all over the country seeking to have states adopt this constitutional Victims' Bill of Rights. And now he's been successful in several states. It's now gotten a lot of wind behind its back here in Kentucky. And we'll see what happens this legislative session. Again, I'm hopeful it will pass and be on the constitutional ballot the next time we have a statewide election for the voters to consider and hopefully approve.
Yes, yes. Tim's Law?
Tim's Law. Tim's Law. Another important piece of legislation. Right now in again, going back to our healthcare system, we have a small group of people, Tim, who are put on medication to deal with various mental health issues, okay? And as long as they're on the medication, they're fine. I mean, they can go about their lives much like you and I can. But, because they can do that, sometimes they feel like they don't need that medication. And when they don't need their medication, then they have some very severe mental health problems: anger, violence, destructive aspects. And if they don't voluntarily seek treatment, Tim, they don't get treatment. And the only way they can get treatment is they get arrested, become part of the criminal justice system, and the judge orders them for treatment. Right? Well, what Tim's Law does is Tim's Law has conditions. It says if this happens twice within a 12-month period, then the families can involuntarily place that person in a mental health facility for treatment. Right? And it's named Tim's Law because there was a mother who had a son named Tim who 37 times, Tim Thomas, 37 times was called by the family to come because of Tim's violent outbursts. Because she couldn't require him to get treatment involuntarily. And he ultimately died, because his behavior became so extreme that eventually he died during one of his outbursts. So that's what Tim's Law is designed to do, to take this small group of people who need medication, need counseling, need treatment, and say if they don't voluntarily seek treatment, the families can involuntarily seek treatment if they have 2 outbursts within 12 months. And just let me add this one other thing too, Tim. We still treat mental health in this state and in this country as if it is taboo. Now, we don't talk about it, we don't fund it properly. And the reality is that most of our mental health treatment today comes from our jails or prisons. We don't fund our mental health facilities properly enough, have enough beds and doctors available to provide them with the proper health care treatment they need. And our criminal justice system should be the last place where people get mental health help.
Very true. And when you talk about mental health, when you look back and up to the present, a lot of families don't really want to talk about it. You know, they won't sometimes keep it a secret.
You're absolutely right.
You know?
You are absolutely right.
And how important it is to bring that to the forefront. And hopefully with this law, it will enable people to bring that to the
right. It empowers families who have family members who need mental health treatment, mental health counseling, who refuse because of their illness, their sickness, to get help voluntarily, to get them the help that they need. So you don't have people like Tim's mother who see their child just waste away and die because of failures of the system.
That's right. That's right. And people slip through the cracks.
A lot of them do. A lot of them do. What we need to do, Tim, truthfully, is properly fund mental health. I mean, it's just as prevalent, as cancer or diabetes, or a whole sort of common illnesses that we come in contact with. But again, because we think it's something that shouldn't be talked about and shouldn't be discussed, and we want to keep it secret, it far too often goes ignored, and people suffer because of it.
Right.
Families suffer because of it.
They do, and they suffer greatly.
Right.
Suffer greatly.
Absolutely.
So this is something we've got on the radar that we're going to be looking at.
Right. I would encourage you and your viewers to look at this very closely, because again, this will come before the Senate and the House in the 2017 session.
And our viewers need to reach out to our elected officials.
Absolutely. Yes.
And voice their opinion and voice their support of this.
I would hope that they would.
Right. Expungement.
Yes.
Another hot topic issue.
Right.
Here in our Commonwealth.
It is. Well, I'm very pleased to say that in the 2016 session, the General Assembly passed a felony expungement bill. So we now have one in place. We have debated this for 20 plus years or more and not gotten very far. But now, individuals who've committed certain felonies, is 61 in total, and you can go to the Department of Justice website and see what those felonies are.
We had bipartisan support for this.
Both houses passed it.
Both houses passed it. And if you go back and look at the data and some of the history of that when we celebrated the March on Frankfurt.
And you were there.
I was there.
Front and center, I remember that.
Yeah. When we celebrated that. That brought to the forefront because we had speakers that talked about this. That kind of brought to the forefront as well of the importance of this.
Yes. And so, while it didn't go as far as some of us would have liked, it is a start, and it has been successful. We've seen more than 1,000 people get their felonies expunged and get their life back.
Right.
Because, Tim, as you know, prior to the felony expungement law coming into existence, felonies have been a life sentence here. You know, we say in our society that once you do the crime and do your time, then everything's forgiven and you know, you're a full-fledged citizen again. But you and I both know, and many of your viewers know, that is not true. You know, felony follows you in terms of your ability to get employment, your ability to go to school and get financial aid, your ability to get certain benefits like housing. You know, it is like a big strike against you in terms of moving forward in your life. And it handicaps people, you know, in terms of really trying to do the right thing and make the most of life going forward. So this felony expungement bill will sort of get rid of that and say people really do get a second chance in life. You know, we're a nation of second chances. We believe in second chances.
Right.
And that's what this felony expungement bill does.
It gives that person that opportunity to step ahead. And every step begins, for the journey, begins with a first step.
That's right.
And that's what this is.
That's right.
That's what that is.
That's well said.
Yeah, and as you said, bipartisan group, who headed that bill? Who was the...
Well, Representative Darrell Owens
Yes.
was the champion of that bill out of Louisville. He's chair of the House Judiciary, and he was the initial proponent of it. But I will say that President Robert Stivers, President of the Senate, was also very supportive of the bill, as was the chair of the Senate Judiciary, Whitney Westerfield. They both supported the bill. And I would be remiss, Tim, if I didn't talk about the fact that my own state representative from Lexington, Jesse Crenshaw, for years championed this bill and a companion bill that gave ex-felons their automatic voting rights. So Jesse Crenshaw from Lexington deserves a lot of credit for this bill finally coming into law.
Great, great. And we appreciate the hard work of these legislators to do this, and it's paying off benefits.
Yes.
It really is. The Work Ready Kentucky scholarships that is in place. Tell us a little bit about that.
I am very, very proud of this plan.
Yes.
This was a plan that was put forward by Speaker Stumbo, by Sandy Overly, who's also part of House leadership. And this idea, which was part of our budget, was that it would give individuals who are Kentucky residents who have finished high school the first 2 years of college free. Okay. Now, what that means, Tim, is it was initially designed to say if you went to the community colleges, you could go there free. Okay. But we expanded that at the last minute to include all four-year schools. So whether you're talking about Murray State here in Western Kentucky, or UK, which is in my Senate area, it allows, it pays for the last dollar of your scholarship. So after you get university scholarships or Pell Grants or whatever fellowships, if you still haven't met all your tuition obligations, the state comes in and pays the last dollar. So in essence, your first 2 years are free. And this provides wonders, Tim, for students who need to go on and get that additional education. I think we all know, Tim, that today a high school education is not enough to provide a sustainable quality of life.
Right.
You need some kind of certification. And I'm not saying, and I don't want your viewers to misunderstand me, I'm not saying everyone has to go to college, okay? But everyone needs some kind of post-secondary training, whether you want to go into auto manufacturing or cosmetology or some kind of software or IT work. You need some kind of certification or specialization or credentialing, okay? And this would allow Kentucky residents to go get those credentials at no additional cost. In other words, it's like rather than paying for K through 12, we're now paying for K through 14. Okay? And of course, we need that because we're a state that is still below 50% in terms of having a number of college graduates or people with the educational skills. And we have a workforce gap, Tim, here in the state. There are more jobs available than we can fill because people don't have the skills needed. And this is a way to address that skills gap here in the state.
Wow.
Now I have to add that even though this was in the budget, it won't be implemented because of a decision made by Governor Bevin until the 2017-2018 budget year. It got delayed 1 year. So it's not happening now, but it will come into existence beginning July 1st, 2017.
Wow. Okay. So we know that it's on the road.
Yes.
Coming into fruition.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm proud to say that here in Madisonville, Hopkins County, we are a work-ready community, which is good. Established here a few years ago. I see the progression through the community colleges and through the workforce development here, as well as economic development.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that. I know Judith Rhodes real well. You know, her husband was a colleague in the state senate, Jerry Rhodes.
Right.
And I'm very much aware of the fine job that she did as president of Madisonville Community College. I've not met the new president
Dr.
yet.
Kelly, yes.
Okay, but I'll be back down here, as you know.
Yes.
And when I return, I would like to meet your new president of MCC.
Yes. As a matter of fact, she plans to be with us at the 33rd annual MLK countywide celebration that you always attend.
I do, and I'll be at this one this January, God willing.
That's right. Right.
Well, I would like to meet your new president at that time.
Be a great opportunity. Medical marijuana.
Yes.
It has a big buzz feed.
Oh, it does. It got a couple of hearings.
No pun intended.
That's right. I like that. That was good. That was good. Anyway, it got a couple of hearings this summer during interim session, and the room was packed.
I'm sure.
There's a lot of interest from constituents. Again, your viewers should know that we passed a very mild piece of legislation dealing with medical marijuana in 2014, my first session, that allowed for the two state universities that have medical schools, University of Kentucky and the University of Louisville, to offer something called cannabidiol oil, some cannabis oil, to be used to treat patients who had chronic diseases like diabetes or glaucoma or other illnesses, where it's been established that marijuana use can help. Those skin issues, constant coughing. But Tim, the problem has been that even though we passed that legislation, we have no statistical evidence or research to show what we've done with it. I mean, I don't know if the universities are even doing it. I've asked for this a couple of times at hearings. So you have over half the states now, including the District of Columbia, allow for medical marijuana. The states that have issued it have not gone back and said, we made a mistake here. Several other states are considering it. It's really time for Kentucky to implement and allow for the use of medical marijuana. It has been medically established to have a lot of good uses for individuals. And it is really heart-rendering to see people come forward and testify about how they could use it and how they don't want to do anything illegal by going to another state and buying it and having to come back to Kentucky and risk being arrested. So again, I hope we really do consider this and bring it to both houses for a vote and for approval. I certainly support it.
Well, that's great. That's great. And you know, I'm glad that the meeting went well.
Yeah.
I'm sure it did, and I'm sure everybody left on a high note.
You're really witty, Tim. You're really witty.
Hey,
I'm enjoying this.
look, it's been great having you all, you know, and being able to communicate,
Right.
you know, and just to share your friendship.
Okay. Well,
And the great
you are a
work you
dear
do.
friend of mine. You are a
Yeah.
dear friend of mine, and like I told you, I will be back in January for your Martin Luther King Day celebration. It truly is a very spiritual, very emotional service. I get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
When I drive back to Lexington, I have a good feeling while I'm on the road going back, having attended your event. And again, I will be back here in January.
Look forward to it. And Senator, we look forward to continue to working with you and others in the legislature in the upcoming days and years ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Tim. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
All right, then.
Been talking with our good friend Senator Reggie Thomas, who represents the 13th district out of Lexington. He's been coming and sharing some of the legislative projects that are taking place in our legislative body. We encourage you to call your legislators and to let them know and voice your opinion on some of the things that we've been talking about here on Focus. We hope you'll tune in again to our program. We thank you for joining us. I am your host, Tim Thomas. By all means, keep sharing the dream.